Alright, let's take a look at some of the crew members on the HMS Snake. Mostly we're going to concentrate on the carronades and the carronade crews as we just got done rigging the carronades in place. But start off with, here's the helm of the ship. You can see a helmsman in place, and the captain, of course, is alongside of the helmsman, looking over the deck. These are just temporary placements, by the way. Wait until all the rigging is done and everything's in place before I decide where the final position should be for all of these various crew members. Here we see the first officer coming up from below decks, coming out to the main deck here, but we can see the hatchway that leads below deck. Now here's the carronades, just been rigged in place. See how close we can get in here, show off some of the rigging. A couple of things to note here. The retaining cords that hold the cannons in place have been double bunted. Seizing lines here have been doubled up on each side. Look very realistic. I'll knock over all the crew members that aren't glued down. That's fine. There's going to be 18 of these carronades on the HMS Snake. So, take a couple seconds and show how I put these in place. Let's go down here to numbers 2 and 3 on the starboard side. Starboard gun crew. Here I'm installing the carronades on the HMS Snake, and this is an example that I'm modeling the ship's carronades after. You can see how they're secured to the bulwarks right here. And so I'm replicating a lot of that in the ship model. So here's the HMS Snake, and taking these pre-rigged. I already built out the carronades, which is seen in a couple of earlier videos, and have added the necessary rigging that's going to attach them to the bulwarks of the ship, including the double blocks, the working double blocks. These actually will work. And you can see here where I've installed one of them already, and another one down here. So what I'm doing right now is measuring out the holes that are going to be drilled along the side of the bulwarks. And of course you got to be very careful because I don't want to drill all the way through. But I'm using this one here as a setup guide, and I've marked off on my measuring stick where the two different holes are going to be drilled, and so now I'm marking those off right here. Now when I install this carronade, the little tips that are the eyelets right here, of course I'll trim these off. Those are going to go into these corresponding holes right here that have been drilled in the bulwarks. Now that I've got the holes drilled and the eyelets installed in place that secure these upper and lower lines on the carronade, these ones right here and these ones here, I got to pull the rigging a little taut so that it looks realistic. As you can see right here with the carronade in place, this rigging, the lower rigging line should be fairly taut, but the upper one, which is the keep the cannons from being a loose cannon kind of a rigging line, this one here has to show some slack in it, and with the weight of gravity keeping it down. So that's what I'm doing right here. I'm going to use just a little bit of cryo glue, medium weight. You use a thin weight and it changes the color of the rigging line a little too much. So apply a little bit of this on either side, and as it starts to dry, I'll use my handy dandy little forceps to hold it down so that as it dries it'll actually take on the look of gravity. Let's see now, let's get this just right. There we go, just like that. Now if I let that dry for about another 20-30 seconds here, it ought to hold that shape for good, and that'll give it a look of realism. Of heavy cordage. Okay, the idea of course is in the completed piece to have it look like this right here. And that's pretty much the way this schematic looks. Achieve that desired effect. So as there's 18 carronades on the HMS Snake, and I've got all these holes drilled now in the bulwarks. It's just a matter of both laying in the rigging line, pulling these lower ones taut, coiling up the rope, getting the upper one just right so that it shows just a little bit of gravity weight there, just like that. You can see what they look like from this side. Take a quick look down the okay. Now here's what's so cool about this portion, or this section of building a tall ship model, the rigging part, is you actually get the pull on the rigging just exactly like the real ships, and you can see how things really work. As you can see with this double block tackle set here, for the carronade I'm making it taut. When I don't pull on it too hard, it shouldn't pull it out of the wall there. So just like on the real ship there, I'm going to do the same thing on the side over here, where this character model that will be used in the model eventually will look like he's pulling on the rigging. Now once these lines have been pulled taut, the tips have to be coiled and laid on the deck. So there we go. Nice and tight, but just with a little bit of slack. Don't want it unrealistically tight. And then let's get this trailing piece here underneath where it should be. There we go. Now I'll coil that up, and once coiled it should look. So here's how I create the rope coils on ship models, and this will work for pretty much all of the cordage that has tails on it that's going to be coiled up. I take a pair of forceps, actually two forceps, and with curved tips, one that's got a pretty wide stance to it here, and push in on it a little bit, just about how wide I want the rope coil to be. Give it 4 or 5 turns depending on the usage for it, and then with the other one I can put it down on the deck here. And I use a medium weight cryo glue. Don't use lightweight glue when you're gluing up the tips of your ropes, because they'll change the color of them. So just a tiny little bit of glue there on each side, and now hold them down in place for about 30 seconds. If necessary, you can round them out a little bit, but hold them down in place here for about 30 seconds, and then trim off the long tail. So here we can see what the completed carronade should look like in place. Rigged to the bulwarks, rope coils glued down in place, cannon retaining lines hanging down to indicate the gravity effect. And again, this is the schematic model that I'm using as a template.